In another video, I talk about using NAICS codes to find the industry information. NAICS codes are great because they're the standard across the governments of the United States, Canada, and Mexico. So if you're looking for industry information in the United States Census or in the Bureau of Labor Statistics, both government agencies, they use NAICS codes. Let's click on industry information here from the Business Information Sources Research Guide. Another great place to find industry information is through IBIS World, which also uses a modified version of NAICS. However, not all databases and not all countries employ NAICS. Today we're going to talk a little bit more about how to find these other codes to see whether or not they can actually map to NAICS and what you can do with them. We're going to start with GICS, which stands for Global Industrial Classification System. Just by looking at the descriptions, you'll notice that NAICS uses a 6-digit system, whereas GICS uses an 8-digit coding system. The differences don't stop there. If we click through, we can learn more information about GICS through its homepage at MSCI. MSCI and S&P Dow Jones created this classification. As you can see in this chart, the system has 11 sectors divided into 25 industry groups, 74 industries, and 163 sub-industries. They provide further information on this website and have a link to an Excel file that explains exactly what every single code refers to. Here's that Excel file. At the top, the header tells us that this structure is effective as of 2023. Below that are some color codes that indicate the changes that have been made. We see that the top level sector, 10, stands for energy. Energy then is subdivided into the industry group 1010, which is energy, and then into further industries such as 101010, energy, equipment, and services, and at the bottom level, 1010101010, which stands for oil and gas drilling. As we scroll down, we see that energy only has one single industry below it, and that's not the case for all of these sectors. The next sector, 15, materials, also only has one. It's subdivided into materials, then into chemicals, construction materials, containers and packaging, so on and so forth. The next sector, 20, is industrials. That's divided into 2010, capital goods, 2020, commercial and professional services, and so on and so forth. You'll notice that at the sub-industry level, there's descriptive text that tells you exactly what activities are included within that sub-industry and also what activities are excluded. Often they have references to other codes, and that tells you where to go if you are looking for an activity that is not explicitly covered here. Now that we know a little bit more about GICS, let's see how we can use it. Recall that GICS is created in part by S&P. As it happens, one of our primary company information databases is a product of S&P. As you can see, Capital IQ is also known as S&P Capital IQ, and they classify industries using GICS rather than NAICS. Let's take a look at what that would look like. Recall that you have to create your own separate account for Capital IQ using your NEIU Net ID and password, so do keep that in mind. If we hover over markets, we can go to the market overview for industries. If we go to refine, we could select a specific industry, or we can look below and see the 11 sectors broken down by various statistics, including market cap, TEV, LTM total revenue, and so on and so forth. Clicking on any one of these sectors provides further information, although it does not give you the ability to break it down into various industries. To do that, we can scroll up and click on Refine. This brings up a pop-up menu showing the 11 sectors. We can refine our search by clicking on any one of these plus signs to get into industry groups. Recall that energy only has the one industry group of energy, and then below that there are two industries, energy equipment and services, and oil, gas, and consumable fuels. We can continue drilling down to get to sub-industries, and in some cases we have the option of drilling down even further. This can be useful if you're looking for a very specific industry, but do keep in mind that the more specific you get, the less data you'll find. See here that oil and gas exploration and production is split into two sub-industries, oil and gas exploration services and oil and gas production. Let's select this to see what data Capital IQ has. Once we've selected and submitted, we're taken back to Capital IQ's page on oil and gas exploration services industry profile. We see here that there's percentages of various ratings based on S&P ratings. And as we scroll down, we're taken to a list of companies that fall within this industry classification. And you can hover over any of their names or ticker codes to see further information. CDL, for example, stands for Cloudbreak Discovery PLC, and it provides the stock exchange and the ticker for that exchange. You'll notice that many of these ratings, indicators, and events are not available simply because you have to select further criteria, such as a geography profile. We'll get into that in a different video, but bear in mind that some of this data may not become available until you've selected further options. The whole point of this is to show you that Capital IQ uses a different industry classification from many other services. They use GICS, not NAICS. If you're used to using NAICS, or if you're used to using GICS, there's unfortunately no easy way to move between the two systems. Very often you have a one-to-many correspondence in both directions, so it's often like comparing apples to oranges. That being said, if you know of a company that has a certain NAICS code, you could always look it up to see how it's classified within the GICS system quite easily in Capital IQ. Let's look at Mondelez. Keep in mind that when you're searching in Capital IQ, you generally want to find the company that has the stock ticker and the exchange listed. This means that it's not a subsidiary or a privately held company, and that also means that there's going to be plenty of information on that company. You'll be taken straight to the company's tear sheet, and on that tear sheet, we're provided with the primary industry classification. In this case, it's packaged foods and meats. We can click through to see further information on this industry, just like we did before. Again, we have the full S&P ratings percentage, a list of major players, and were we to select a geography profile, we could see even further information. And if you're curious about the exact structure of the industry classification, you can click here on View Complete Industry Classification. We see that packaged foods and meats falls under the consumer staples sector, and then we can narrow it down further and further. We see that it belongs to the food, beverage, and tobacco large industry, the food products industry, and the packaged foods and meats sub-industry. Also, when we click here, we see something called SIC codes. We see that the SIC codes that are applied here are 2022 natural processed and imitation cheese, 2000 food and kindred products, and 2052 cookies and crackers. SIC codes are yet another type of industrial classification, but aside from a few specific applications, you don't really need to worry about them. SIC codes were created in 1937 by the US government, but they were replaced in 1997 in most applications by NAICS codes. So that includes the United States Census and the Bureau of Labor Statistics. The one place these codes still hang on despite the fact that they haven't been updated since the 1980s, is in SEC filings, which is why they're here. The United States, Mexico, and Canada use NAICS, and GICS is used by a few proprietary databases. Much of the rest of the world uses ISIC, which stands for the International Standard Industrial Classification of All Economic Activities. And NAICS and ISIC are designed to be compatible with each other. So if you know a NAICS code or an ISIC code, it's much easier to compare the two than it is if you have a GICS code. We can learn more about ISIC at the United Nations ISIC page. This landing page provides some historical information. If we scroll down to the bottom, we see that we could look at revision 0 from 1948. But right now, we are on the 5th version, the 5th revision, which was endorsed in 2023. This page includes links to the introduction, explanatory notes, structure, and an Excel file with structure and explanatory notes. Let's take a look at that. We see here a full listing of ISIC codes. And we can see that they're structured in a way that they start with a letter. In this case, A is the first one, and that refers to agriculture, forestry, and fishing. Each letter is then followed by a sequence of numbers. Because I downloaded the file that has the full explanations, we have information about what this class includes and what it excludes. So for example, A0125, growing of other tree and bush fruits and nuts, includes growing of berries, and it excludes the growing of other products, such as growing of coconuts. And there's a reference that tells us to look at 0126. In this case, that's oleaginous fruits. The best way to find a code is simply by doing a Control F and typing in a keyword. Ideally, this will take you to an entry, either the title or an explanatory note. While ISIC is very complete and does have wide international usage, keep in mind that different countries may have their own specific codes. The United Kingdom has one, Australia and New Zealand have one, and the European Community tends to use their own proprietary system in addition to ISIC. Researching industries often requires us to try to figure out exactly what code applies and hope that we're looking in the right database for that code. It can often be confusing. So I've shown you how to use GICS and capital IQ, and there is a separate video, which I'll link below, that shows you how to use NAICS and other databases. Keep in mind that you can always get in touch with me. Here on the Business Research Guide, I've got my email address, and if you click on this ribbon, you can schedule a one-on-one appointment with me. Please don't hesitate to reach out if you need assistance researching industry or any other business-related activity.